For people who were here, hello, second lesson on right angle trigonometry. What was the first thing for those who weren't here last lesson? What did we have to do? First thing, we had to, starts with an L, label the sides. Okay, now we have 3 sides in a right angle triangle with trigonometry. Okay, the 3 sides, and you probably don't have to write this down because you'll see it and I'll show you the thingy in a minute, but our good old friend, the side that is opposite the right angle is, and always will be called, the hypotenuse. So we put a big old H, right? We then, the difference between Pythag and trig is the fact that we now include angles. So we pick one angle to be really important, and that's the angle that we are interested in, which means its opposite side. Guess what we call it, people who weren't here? The opposite. And the next side is called the adjacent, and we put an A there. Now, again, in our notes from last lesson, it's all spelled out for you. I'll put the PowerPoint up and you can flick through it and you can have a look, but we just want to go through and log in. Okay, so if you want a little bit more on that, look at the previous video, please. So away we go. Even if you weren't here last lesson, we all know, what's my hypotenuse? Where am I going to go? Left, right, straight? Right, straight down, that's my hypotenuse. This is the angle that I've been given, so it's the angle that I focus on, which means, huzzah, straight opposite is opposite. The leftover side is the adjacent. We now need to make a decision. We go, which of these, O, A and H, is useless? Right, in this situation, the O is useless because there's no information there and we don't want to find it. So now we're left with A and H. We look at our 3 groovy rules, which is the only rule that uses A and H. We write it down. And when we write it down, we make sure that we don't just write cos, we actually write cos theta. Okay, must do that. For those who are madly copying, probably if you just listen and then I will stop and then I'll give you a chance to copy. So, we've labelled, we've chosen our rule. Next step for a good mathematician, sub. We sub. So, cos is just cos, but what does this theta stand for? It stands for the angle, and correct, our angle is 43. It says equals, I put equals. Which one is my A? Good. 15 all over, my hypotenuse is X. Now, when we have the unknown downstairs, people who were here, you switcheroo. Exact. Brilliant. So what that means, I mean, we can do the whole long-winded algebra. To get rid of a divide by X, what do we have to do? Times. So then we've got X times cos 43, and then how do I get rid of a times cos 43? Divide. So I'm just skipping a step, and we switch. And now, who's going to do all the work? The calculator. So we pop this in our calculator. Okay, I want 2 decimal places, so what will it be? 20.51. Excellent. Okay. And I didn't put units in this case, but if there were centimetres, metres, you'd put them there. Here we go. First thing we want to do, label. The easiest one to label, I think, is your hypotenuse. Tay, where am I going to stick that H? Yeah, good girl. Find your right angle, boom, H. We then find the angle that we're focused on. That's this one, the 64. Brado, we're right? Brandon, we're right? What? We're good? Pay attention, please. So we've got our angle, which makes this one. Which makes this one the? No. How would we describe? That is opposite the angle, so we put a big old O. Adjacent means next to, and quite frankly, it's just the last one that's left. So we put an A there. Okay, we have to get rid of one. Which one is useless to us? H is useless, so we get rid of it. Well, we want to find X, so O is needed. This has information, so the A is needed. That's got nothing, so get lost. Okay, we've labelled we've got the information that we need, so now we have to choose the rule. Which rule are we going to choose? Tan, right? That's the only rule that uses O and A. Some people, last lesson, they decided to change maths that other people have proven for thousands of years. Winter. And instead of writing O over A, they flipped it and wrote A over A over O. Don't do that, right? Use the rule, O over A. I think the hard work is pretty much done. Now we sub. So theta stands for our angle. So instead of writing theta, what will we write? What is our angle? 64. Excellent. What's my O? X. It says over A. What's my A? Right? And your big decision now is, I want X by itself. M's, you've been away. X is being divided by 20. I want to undo a divide by 20. I do. I times by 20. Look at us rocking the algebra. Okay, now, before we carry on with 3, there's a little bit of a problem with it. 1, yes, there's no angle. That's not the issue. There's something dodgy with the lengths. Right, your 3 is your hypotenuse here, and it cannot be shorter than another side. It's got to be the longest side. So always double check. And I did that deliberately to make sure that you're watching. So I can, change it to that. All right. I just added 8. It was just 3 before. Stuff. You could have. That's what we're waiting for. It's the same thing that we did every single time. So guess what? We're going to label winter. That's twice. We're going to label just like we did last time. So we start with Diesel. Where's our hypotenuse, man? Correct. So stick an H there. The next thing, I think, focus on the angle that's important. So I reckon that's the angle. So where am I going to stick my O? 15. At the 15. I can put the A there, but we can see there's nothing. And if I write it, I just have to scribble it out anyway, correct? So we're done. What rule uses O and H? Excellent. So nothing new from what we did before. Would you agree? I'll just wait for people. We sub our information in. So we're going to keep our sign. This is the bit that's different. We don't know the angle, do we? It was theta, so we keep it there. Well, you could put X. I'm just going to keep it as theta because that's what we say is what we call an unknown angle. We do know our opposite, which is 15, and our hypotenuse, which is 38. So again, everything all groovy, and you think, uh-oh, typical maths. Just when you think you understand, it's going to go nuts. No. We look at our calculator. So open up your calculator. We want to get rid of the sign. I don't know if you've ever noticed your calc, but can you see on mine, here's my x squared. The opposite is the, right next to it, in this case above it, is the square root. Opposite of times, divide. Opposite of add, take. What do you think the opposite? How do you get rid of a sign? That's actually logarithm, but sin to the minus 1. This is called the inverse of sine. The inverse. So we're going to go, to get theta, we're going to take the inverse of that answer. Now, you guys have already figured it out, I think, because it's in yellow. What do we have to hit? Shift sign, and it actually pops up there. Right? Yours already puts a bracket, which is great. So shift sign already puts a bracket. I'm going to be, I don't need to put a bracket, but I will. Hit my fraction button. 15 over 38. Close my bracket, press enter. And this one is telling me what that angle is. So 23. We're going to leave the angles as a whole number. Okay? So we're happy that it'll just be 23. So 23 degrees.